So, YouTube stars are learning the hard way that everything you post online stays there forever. Shane Dawson and Jenna Marbles are two of the latest YouTube celebrities to face intense backlash for racist videos that they posted in the past. Both stars make millions of dollars by creating content on YouTube, and now they're facing the consequences of cancel culture as Dawson hemorrhages thousands of followers and loses multiple endorsements, including Target. So Taylor Lorenz is here to talk us through the mess at times of cancel culture. She is a New York Times reporter. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to say to people, like, it may sound like this is just like sort of gossip talk about not real celebrities because they're YouTube celebrities. But the reality is this is a major industry. These people become millionaires, and often they are able to branch out beyond their videos into, developing their own products. But everything hinges on maintaining their followers. So let us talk about cancel culture. People have heard this phrase in the past number of years, but they may not understand exactly what it means. So let's just get the definition out of the way. What is cancel culture?
Well, cancel culture, in my opinion, is a pretty bad phrase. I think it's applied very generously to mean something happened to someone because of something they did. I mean, I've heard it. I think a better phrase might be accountability culture. It often is kind of people being held accountable for past actions or past words and things like that. We've seen the negative effects of some of that type of backlash. But I think in this case, with Shane Dawson, he's so big, and the stuff that he has said has been over so many years. I don't think it's just like some flippant call out campaign that's happening to him right now.
So we're seeing a slew of YouTube stars, including Jenna Marbles and Shane Dawson, release apology videos for old racist videos that they publish, including the use of the N-word and blackface. Why are these videos just now being addressed? Are they the ones that are calling attention to it, or are people specifically targeting them, going into their past history and dredging them up?
Well, they're not targeting them, I would say. But, this is something that keeps coming up for Shane, especially. Shane made incredibly offensive videos that, frankly, Black YouTubers were very upset about at the time. And he's attempted to address it over the years, but then still kind of made a lot of missteps. I think finally we're in this moment where we as a culture are realizing, hey, look, some of this content that maybe the mainstream kind of considered was, acceptable is no longer acceptable. And we should hold these huge stars accountable, basically. So I think this has been building for some time. Obviously people did go somewhat into his past and redredge it up, but it was sort of this like decades long, issue for him. And I think finally it just came to a head when enough people were like, you know what, we're not willing to accept this.
So right now we're just talking about a couple of YouTube stars, but I want to ask you if perhaps there's a broader issue. A lot of times the algorithms on these social media platforms encourage extreme behavior or controversial behavior that gets you more clicks, more views. 10 years ago, using the N-word was not a thing, but he was rewarded for that behavior. So I wonder if there's a broader challenge here that the platforms may be responsible a little, and that others on the platform are using the way the algorithms work to get as many followers as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the platforms have a huge role in this, just based on the fact that they didn't demonetize his videos until today, 2020, after this really long, sort of drawn out drama. So I think that they need to hold all creators accountable. Even though they've demonetized Shane, they haven't held all the other many creators that have built careers off offensive content to the same standard. So I think that the platforms are going to have to rework that and, kind of figure out how they want to move forward and how they can better facilitate, content that isn't offensive and isn't problematic.
Taylor, Anne-Marie knows that I love to do this. I love to sort of look at where we are today as a society and try to find examples of this behavior or these actions or attitudes existing historically. And I just sometimes wonder, I know there's a lot of people who make a thing of cancel culture as if it's sort of new, but I sometimes wonder to myself, is it really all that new? Throughout the course of, especially in pop culture, there have been so many celebrities and artists who have been canceled for a variety of issues. And I mean, just off the top of my head, I was thinking as we were listening to you about Jerry Lee Lewis, because of behavior that comes to light that people find to be unacceptable. Jerry Lee Lewis, for some people who may be very young, may not know, was an early rock and roller in the 1950s. When it emerged that he had married his underage cousin, he was blown out of the business and was, lost his career essentially. This has always existed, but I guess maybe now because of the internet and because of the ability of others to mine past postings or past things that you may have said and done since it's on video or since it exists online, it makes it seem more prevalent, but has it not always sort of just been thus?
Well, I mean, people have always been called out on certain things, but I think there have been huge swaths of, different industries that frankly haven't been called out. I mean, if you look at the Me Too movement, right, especially in Hollywood, there were all of these men that were operating pretty much in the open for years that never faced any sort of accountability. I think we're seeing, these kind of accountability-based movements move across. I wrote about, this big movement in the Twitch and gaming community last week. Over 70 women opened up about experiences with sexual assault, rape, and issues they've had with men in the community, racism as well. So I think people are kind of using social media to speak up. I just want to make one more point too. This phrase cancel culture gets thrown around a lot. These quote unquote canceled people so rarely suffer, significant consequences if they're, of an important enough stature. We're talking about Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star losing a lot of followers. They might lose a lot of followers now, but who knows how they'll fare in the long term. I think we've seen a lot of people with a lot of money and power ultimately ride out their cancellations and be fine, So I think, how you respond to it matters a lot, and, how you correct your behavior going forward.
Fans of Jenna Marbles have come to her defense, and they've pointed out that some of these videos that are offensive now, it was 10 years ago, she was a different person. And I also consider the fact that, I'm totally stereotyping now, but I don't know a lot of 60-year-olds that are watching these videos. So, presumably her fans were 10 years younger too when they were watching this offensive stuff. And it's only now that, fast forward 10 years, you're now an adult. Well, you didn't find offensive at 13, you might find offensive at 23. And so now she's sort of dealing with the consequences of that. And so I ask you about this whole cancel culture situation. Can it be toxic? Can it unfairly target people, and not give them room to grow and evolve as humans?
Well, it's funny. I think there's this. I think maybe Me Too is a better understanding, right? Like a lot of people kind of understand the Me Too movement, and it kind of affected them, maybe, and maybe they're more open to that, And a lot of people made similar claims about men, well, if you just call out all these men, what about the ones that are good, or, can they ever move on? And I think that we've seen that actually this movement has been really great, and it's allowed a lot of women to kind of speak truth to power to a lot of this stuff. I think what we're seeing now is this more broad-based accountability movement where people are calling out racism, homophobia, all of this stuff. And yes, of course, sometimes it, can have negative consequences, and people will lose their careers. But overwhelmingly, I think it's a very positive thing that people as a society are determining, hey, look, racism, sexism, homophobia, this is stuff that we're just not okay with. I think Jenna Marbles also, I was looking at the reaction. People are supporting her. I think she needed to take a break. No one really asked her or wanted her to take a break. She chose to do that for herself and step back, I think, because she seems to be an empathetic person that wants to really grow. But, it's just unfortunate. Think of all the generations of Black YouTubers that haven't felt like they've had a place in the platform because of the, the type of content that Jenna posted.
And Taylor, one of the other things I love doing with really smart people like you and engaging in these types of discussions with you and Anne-Marie is also to look at the structural, the systems that allow behavior like this to flourish or to be done away with. You mentioned something that was really important to me. You said that oftentimes a lot of these people that are quote unquote canceled never really suffer long-term consequences, that they do somehow either come back, doing what they did before in terms of their livelihoods. And I just thought of Mel Gibson and some other people that have had issues, that all of a sudden you find them being employed again. And so until, I'll never forget when I had a discussion with India Ari on the red carpet about Me Too and about some of the things that, were now coming to light with people in all industries, but specifically the music industry. And she told me, she said, Vlad, until, we can wear the flowers and we can call out individuals, which is what we are doing, but until the system changes and the people who hold the purse strings and who run these systems, who are in charge of these systems, you will only be chipping at an iceberg. And I wonder, Taylor, if in your reporting you find that to be true as well, because you're right, there are people who maybe they go away from their particular platform, be it a movie or YouTube, but then in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, they pop back up, as if nothing ever happened.
Absolutely. I mean, Vlad, that's a perfect way to put it. And I'm so glad that India spoke to that. It's very true. I think for these people who live on the internet, what I cover are YouTubers, creators, they're different. A studio can ultimately blacklist, a movie star or say, hey, we're not going to cast you anymore. These internet influencers have these very dedicated online fan bases, and you don't need a huge amount of people to support you. You just sort of need this loyal fan base. So there's almost less accountability for them. I mean, if we look at the Twitch and gaming world just last week, we saw that even these very problematic people, they don't really suffer any consequences unless they're cut off from the platforms that are used to sort of distribute their content. So that comes down to YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. All of these companies need to think really critically about the type of content that they're promoting and allowing to foster on their platforms, and how they can, better facilitate a more inclusive environment for creators.
Really, really interesting discussion. Taylor, always great to talk to you. This is really fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.